In this video, I'm going to try and explain the relationship of key to capo position. This issue comes up quite a bit, so I'll see if I can help and not confuse. The first thing to realize is that where a chord lives on the fingerboard never ever changes. It will always be the same. So here's an open G, there's an A, second fret, there's a B, there's a C. That does not change when you use the capo. Where'd my capo go? Sitting on it. So whether you're using your finger or a capo, that's still an A. So the same with the relationship of formed chords to where the nut is, or whether you're using a capo or not. So an open chord, that becomes a D, but if you were capoed to A, it's still a D. So here's without a capo, here's with a capo, it's still a D chord, A, D. So if we move it to B, without a capo, that's an E. The E lives there always. So if I use a capo, it's still an E. So that's the first thing to understand, is that where the chords live on the fingerboard do not change whether you use the capo or not. So I'm going to play a simple thumb alternating roll to demonstrate the relationships and that the position of the chord doesn't change, the name of it does when you're using the capo. So here's an open G. That's a 1-4-5. So I was playing G, C, D. When I use a capo, let's just do it to A. I'm going to do the same thing. Well, obviously the pitch is different, but you'll notice that it's still an A, B, E. I'll just play it without a capo. Nothing has changed, the chords still live there, but the nut has moved up 2 frets. Where it gets a little confusing is you'll go to jam sessions and people will say capo to A, 2 frets, and then they'll start calling out G, C, and D, only because that's the relationship that they learned in an open position. And it's much less confusing that way when you're communicating with other musicians who are also capoed. So if a guitar player capos 2 frets and you yell out G, the guitar player is going to play a G shape, but he's actually making an A. It gets a little more confusing for the bass player or the fiddle player who does not use a capo. If you're playing this and calling out G, C, D, G, the bass player is going to be doing, because that's what you're telling him to do. So it gets a little confusing at jam sessions, and most bass players and fiddle players are used to that. They'll be transcribing on the fly. So when you're at a jam session playing an A and you call out D, for example, he's going to see that you're capoed to 2 and he's going to play an E, or she, when you're playing and yelling out D. But they are used to transcribing. But again, that position lives there always. It doesn't matter where your capo is. So even if you capo 2 frets, and you play this, that's still an E chord. It's an E chord. It's still an E chord. Nothing changes as far as where it lives. I hope that helps. I hope I didn't confuse. Thanks. And I'll try not to lose my capo.